Do you know what word is worse than a no, Adam? It's a, I'll think about it, right?
Hello, and welcome to the Healthtech Marketing Podcast, brought to you by Health Launchpad and him. So thank you all of you for listening and for watching. We really appreciate you doing that. We do it for you, and we hope you get a lot of value out of it. I also want to give a big thank you and a big shout out to my partner Hims, who make this possible. Couldn't do it without you. So today's episode, episode number 30, and I can't believe it's not the first episode we've done on social media, but it's the first episode that we've done specifically on social selling. And I'm really excited to introduce the amazing Anita Windisman. Anita is co-founder of Blue Square Collective, and she'll tell a little bit about that in a minute. She is a really highly regarded expert in social selling. And her firm at Blue Square, they help companies master digital and social selling. And, you know, her heritage is in social media. I mean, prior to founding Blue Square, she was with LinkedIn in the UK, and then had a really deep background in sales and marketing, particularly in B2B before that. So let's get right into it. Hello, Anita, and welcome to the show. So tell us about yourself. Tell us about Blue Square.
It's a pleasure to be here, Adam. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, so a little bit about myself. I have a deep background in sales and marketing. And I worked at LinkedIn for 5.5 years, not only in the Toronto office, where I'm from, but also overseas in London, UK. And I was one of the originals in social selling when the premium license, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, launched in 2012. And I think you're familiar with that tool.
Oh, yeah. I love that tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was there, I was kind of one of two people. We developed the training material and the onboarding, and we were the product experts. So we were there really at the ground level. And I had the pleasure of working with the world's leading sales teams, helping them to implement digital selling programs. So companies like SAP, Xerox, IBM, Oracle, Salesforce, Google, and others. And in the UK, if you're listening, Vodafone, BBC, so a whole host there.
Heard of them.
Yeah. And and right now, I run a company called Blue Square Collective, Blue Square, Blue Square LinkedIn logo.
There you go.
Former LinkedIners, so we have deep experience in LinkedIn. And we help companies get up to speed on digital selling, but not only sales teams, Adam, because everyone, regardless of a role within an organization, can be a brand ambassador. And that helps sales, also marketing. It helps in talent attraction. So anyone can benefit from having a digital selling program or brand ambassador program in place. And also on occasion, I work one-on-one with senior executives on their personal branding as well.
So interesting. And so I started Health Launchpad about 3 years ago, and I don't think I could have done it or done what we've done the last 3 years without Zoom, but also without LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn has just been incredibly important. And actually the first thing I did when I set up the business was go out and get some coaching on how to do it, which I've really tried to stick at it. But so this notion of social selling in business to business, is social selling just about LinkedIn?
No, it can be done on any platform, but keep in mind the word social. You can do that. Regardless of where you are. And the definition of social selling and the way that LinkedIn describes it, and I like it, it's allowing sales professionals to build trusted relationships and to boost their social credibility via their brand and ultimately reach their sales goals. So that's a simple definition of it. And, with that generic definition, you can do that on any platform. But more recently, and especially in the last 3 years, because of the economic situation, that has morphed into something more nuanced, and that is like virtual selling. And so that allows you to scale even more because you don't have to be in front of customers now. And then layered on top of that is the use of technology. So when I started 10 years ago with social selling, it was, social selling was really just about, LinkedIn and your CRM. Now it's so much more, and I'm pretty sure we'll get into that a little bit later.
I'm looking forward to that. We're going to learn a lot today. So when you consult with an organization, when you advise these big corporations that you work with about social selling, what are these steps? What's the process that you take them through to get them to transform their organization in the way that they use social selling?
Yeah, it's a tried and true process. And first of all, it has to start at the top. There needs to be some buy-in. LinkedIn is going to be 20 years old, literally on May the 5th, right? So we're beyond really convincing sales teams why they need to be social selling. And now it's more about implementation. So, if there are resistors out there, companies that are saying to me, prove it. Sorry, do your own homework. But we're beyond that, right? So anyway, it starts with the top and knowing that you have to implement this for your team. And then I start off an engagement with creating a social selling blueprint. So, and first of all, you have to have the right people involved. So it's normally a sales leader, and I make sure that we bring in a marketing leader as well. And then if there's learning, development, sales enablement, depending on how large the company is, really. So you need an executive sponsor. And then number 2, you need to set some goals. What do you want to accomplish? And ultimately, it's the achievement of sales goals. But if I'm training a sales teams and not sales teams, then the marketing wants to increase their visibility or provide more exposure for their content. Also, the added benefit of social selling is talent attraction. So there, it can fulfill a number of goals, really. So that's setting goals, right? And then number 3, you have to make training mandatory. It's not just a nice to have, like you said, Adam, you could not have launched your company without really understanding LinkedIn. And I really feel that because everyone is on the platform, you really have to double down and really understand LinkedIn and use it, right? So it's not just a one and done kind of training. You have to make it part of your training, your general daily routine, essentially, because it's not just prospecting, it's developing relationships, right? That's the core of it. Yeah,
absolutely. And it is actually, it is doing a bit of something every day. Just full disclosure, I do 20 LinkedIn invites every day. And the reason I do 20 is because that's the most that you can do, I believe. And I engage with people on social media in a genuine way. I do it because I'm interested in what they have to say. And I post twice a day. And I do a LinkedIn newsletter article once a week. And it pays off because I hear, when I talk to a prospect, somebody booked a meeting with me through the website who I may not be familiar with. And I say, so how did you hear about me? And they usually say, well, I saw one of your webinars or I read one of your blog posts. So I came to your website through SEO. But I've sort of stayed in touch with you through LinkedIn. And that's how I've really got to understand you. And now I felt like now was the time to reach out and book a meeting. And I find that's the way it really works.
Absolutely. That's the classic definition of social selling, providing that social proof. They feel that they know you, and then you close the business and you really crunch that sales cycle. And that's what happened to me just yesterday. So I had a meeting with a possible new client, and this was a client from, that I had previously. He moved to a new job. I had a discussion with another senior sales leader in my inbox this morning. Yeah, let's go. Okay, like that's a 24-hour close. Really? Yeah. So I mean, it's like boom, right? It's just like, and I just sent the DocuSign just before the call, right?
Wow.
And so that's what social selling is, right? And that's what it is. And so I don't do any outbound sales prospecting. I don't have to, and same with you because people come to you, right?
Exactly.
And that's it's to become the trusted advisor and a trusted voice in a sea of a lot of voices, and there are a lot of voices out there. So. Yeah. So that is the process which I just outlined. And then just to kind of wrap it up, I build in some gamification to have a little bit of fun. I mean, sales teams are inherently competitive, that number, that sales goal, but there are other ways to sort of gamify the process, most improved profile or best success story or best, resurrected from the dead account or something like that. So, building in a little bit of fun and recognition into the program as well.
Yeah,
that works.
It's a nice, because it's clever that, because it allows you to track how people are actually using it. Are people actually adopting the training, but do it in a way that you reward people for good behavior rather than it's carrots, not sticks. So I think that's very clever.
Exactly. And everyone wants to talk about themselves and, telling about their successes. And I'll tell you, Adam, that nothing drives adoption usage better than knowing, like, what did Adam do? I want to do what Adam did. Right. And so it's a healthy competition that kind of reinforces that. And one other thing. So, at the top, I was talking about the top-down approach, but I always make sure that in the training that, I have a discussion with at least a couple of sales reps who are really, the already kind of super users, right? Because they are probably the informal leaders there and kind of subtly sort of putting pressure on others. So it's kind of top down and bottom up. And then when they're talking about their experiences, then that always works. So that's essentially the whole program.
Yeah. So when what is it that you think makes somebody a really superstar social seller?
Well, it starts with the definition of what makes a great seller. And that is really understanding what your client's pain points are, knowing your customer challenges. Because if you don't know that, then if you take that lack of knowledge or whatever to social media, it's just not going to work. So knowing your product, being passionate about it, and understanding how you can help customers, right? It's not just pushing a product out there. So that's really number one. And also you need to be a trusted advisor. LinkedIn did a report a couple of years ago, and they asked sellers, what's the number one quality that you look for in a sales rep? And you know what it is? It's trust. Trust closes deals, right? It's pretty obvious when someone is talking at you and trying to close a sale rather than really listening to you, understanding what you want to achieve in business. And so it's all about trust. And also a really good social seller really knows where a buyer is in the journey, right? If it's not time for a discovery call now, well, here's some more information. If they're not quite ready, okay, well, here's some social proof and a case study, right? Sort of understanding what to deliver and when, right? It's about listening and not just pushing something on your customer. And also there's a really fascinating new book out there, and you and I, we talked about it before, and it's called Jolt. Brought to you by,
my favorite new book. Yeah.
Brought to you by one of the authors of the Challenger Sale. And, I still, the Challenger methodology is really a methodology that I know, that I'm familiar with and love. I mean, all of them are good, but that was kind of the one that really sort of changed things maybe about, over 10 years ago. And the main thesis is that, sales is now affected either moderately or seriously by customer indecision. And, you know what word is worse than a no, Adam? It's I'll think about it, right? Because at least with the no, like that's it. I know not to waste time and resources, but the stringing along, right? Like when sales leaders can't be honest to say, you know what, like I can't deal with this right now. It's not the right time. I think that's the best thing that you can tell a sales rep. So, and they're saying that, the authors indicate that 40 to 60% of deals end up being stalled in a no decision limbo. And I think that's the worst, right?
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
And where this comes from, we've heard of fear of missing out, FOMO, right?
Yeah.
But now there's a new one, fear of messing up, FOMU, right?
Yep.
FOMU,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then a good sales rep will have that empathy to say, hey, Adam, look, I know this is a big decision, right? And here's the reason that you may want to proceed, but don't worry. we have the resources to help you onboard, to help you get the most out of it.
De-risk, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And Adam, you and I are of a vintage that I think we're going to date ourselves maybe, but do you remember the old phrase? Nobody ever got fired
for buying IBM.
IBM, I know, exactly. And that was my client, right?
Right. Mine too at one point.
Oh gosh, my goodness, yeah. And so you want to make them feel comfortable that this is the right decision as well. So anyway, so those are all the elements, and it's complicated, right? When you talk about what makes a good social seller. And how do you think LinkedIn plays into that FOMO versus FOMO? Yeah, well, it's being that trusted advisor, right?
Right. Yeah.
Adam knows what he's talking about. I really like what he has to say. I like his approach. I like what he has to say. He seems to be an honest guy, right? Like he's telling me the truth, right? Not like he cares passionately about the business and where it's going, right? And so I can trust him. And then all of that kind of paves the way for what comes next in the sales process.
So let's talk a little bit about, when you work with a company to try and get them to scale up, social selling and sort of really adopt it across a whole sales organization. I've been doing, I do quite a little bit of that sort of advising and training and that sort of thing, but I find it so hard to get a company to really genuinely sort of adopt it at scale. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, well, I saw that right at the beginning when nobody knew anything about Sales Navigator. And here's what happened sort of back in the day, like 10 years ago. It would be sort of, the customers would do a pilot, right? And I'm talking about big enterprise companies here, right? Like if you're a small or mid-sized companies, you have to go all in. So I'm not telling you any secrets, but, SAP is one of the amazing social sellers globally. And so I had the pleasure of working with them for 4 years. And so they started off with 50 licenses and then 500. And then that worked. And so they got their proof. And then they scaled up to 2,000. And then they went all in with 15,000 licenses. And so and at every step of the game, when they were sort of ramping up, LinkedIn, of course, because I was helping them, we helped them and then implemented the trainer concept and then scaled in countries and then globally. So there was a big infrastructure in place, right? And then they partnered with marketing and then they partnered with sales enablement and learning and development. So, but that's at the huge enterprise level, right? But if your sales team is, 20, 50, 100, it's just like it's a no-brainer. It's just,
right.
Yeah. But at that point, it's more about adoption and usage rather than scale. Right.
Got it.
So,
So that's actually, as you said, is what you said, right? This is top down. The CEO, the executive team says, we're doing this and we're going to make this a competitive advantage. And that's what they've been successful in. What I find is that most companies say, we should really provide some LinkedIn training. And honestly, so sometimes I feel like it's sort of like when I'm giving the training, it's like, there are some people in the room you can tell are really engaged. Other people, they've sort of sitting there going like, and I don't know whether they're crossing their arms because they've done it or because it's like, this is like, it's like, it's like doing the sexual harassment training, which is they've got to check the box that we've got to do it. And so what I find really hard is to then get, particularly if you're working with a small team, maybe it's just one division of a big company, is then to get that whole team to say, no, you really do need to do it. And that's why I was so interested in what you said about gamification, because I do think that is, it's about, training is the foundation. It's about driving adoption. And that's actually a much more long-term thing.
Yeah. And, LinkedIn changes all the time, right? Yeah. And so with features and this and that, and, and everybody thinks that because they're on LinkedIn, I know LinkedIn. Yeah. But after every single training session, or whether I'm working with a big team, a small team, or even one-to-one, it's just like, wow, I didn't know that, right? Yeah. There's always something that you can learn. And so, when I, be a little bit humble when you show up for training, right? Like I have the mindset that I'm always going to learn something, whether I'm listening to a podcast or webinar or whatever, right? Be open that you're going to learn something new that you didn't know before. And LinkedIn has changed massively.
Yeah.
So back in the day, 20 years ago, it was a job platform, right? Then it turned into a sales platform. Now it's a content platform, right? So it's always evolving, and who knows where it's going to go next.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's very interesting that. So, what you're describing is for companies to fully embrace it, it's about change management. What do you see? You talked about SAP, and are there any other examples of companies that sort of the journey, maybe a smaller company, that's sort of the journey that they've gone through and how they turned it into a competitive advantage?
There's so many success stories on the LinkedIn website for Sales Navigator. I'll give you an example. So I was working with a small, very boutique, highly regarded boutique consulting firm in the UK. And in fact, they have clients. Actually, LinkedIn was a client when I was there. They trained me on communication, not me, but others. And so, and their clients are Apple and Google and LinkedIn, and they just kind of top notch. And so they came to me for some LinkedIn help and some very intensive help working with the senior executives. And they saw, and this is crazy when they said, Anita, with the advice that you gave, we saw a 30x return. Right.
Wow.
And that's crazy. You see, it doesn't take much. It just takes, and it's just, I think they had to get over their Britishness, their politeness. Yeah, I'm saying this as a Canadian in a loving way. It's just like, well, we can't bother them. We can't be out there. It's just like, no, you're just developing business relationships. And then this firm was so lovely that they could never offend anyone, or be aggressive in that way. But all they had to do was, change a couple of things. And then it's like, okay, like they saw it. And when the light bulb goes off that way, it's just like, okay, my job is done. I get, they'll be converts. So that's just an example of how even with a small firm, you can have big results when you take this seriously and when you do the work, right? And it's doing the work, like you say, Adam, it's like, being there consistently over time, right? It's like, if you say you want to get healthy or lose weight or whatever, has some health goals, you can't just pop a pill, right? That's why the whole weight loss industry is like, have an injection, lose some weight. No, ultimately you have to put in the work, whether it's
a great analogy,
for your health or for work or whatever.
Yeah. That's a great. It is about routine and becoming part of the fabric of what you do day to day as a sales and marketing person. So when you were educating executives about LinkedIn, what are some of the key things that you talk to them about that might sort of change, get them to go, oh, I didn't know that?
Well, it's, arming them with a few statistics. And so, LinkedIn is constantly coming out with statistics. So, the statistic that I told you about trust being part of the selling process. So that's a really compelling one. Yeah. And how do you develop that? Having a good profile online. What's the first thing that someone is going to do after you reach out to them? Go to LinkedIn, right? So if you don't have a credible profile, then it's like, what is this? And then it's, and it's trying to appeal to them, emotionally as well, right? Like sales leaders, they do want to be perceived as, to get credit for the senior person that they are, for the hard work that they've done to achieve what they've done. And you want that reflected on your profiles. And, and my message to senior sales leaders and marketing leaders, and it's so funny because sometimes I see that those are some of the worst profiles that I've seen. Because they think, it's like, oh, well, I sit back, I do the admin, and I don't have to be front line.
Right.
But, consider this compelling statistic. You have to kind of be the leader and show your team that, you are the key brand ambassador for your company. So a study by LinkedIn, here's a compelling statistic, 70% of would-be buyers say that thought leadership helps them determine which vendor to put on their short list.
Wow, I love that stat.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
That is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and how do you get that buy-in from the reluctant sales leaders, right? And so it's by showing them, things like that. And also for marketing leaders, when I'm speaking to marketing leaders, again, the LinkedIn data shows that content posted by a person gets up to 8 times more engagement than content posted on a company page. So yes, they may be focusing on posting on the company page, which is fine. But then if I take and repurpose that content and post it as me, or you post it as you, Adam, then that has a more kind of personal flavor, because then it comes from a person rather than an entity.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
So prospects trust people more than they trust companies, right? So that's, again, it comes back to social. It's the people part, Adam. The people, right?
Right.
So
particularly in the space that we're in, which is more business to business, where it is, relationships are foundation. I mean, they I don't know about relationships or everything, but maybe they are. Relationships really are everything.
And in the B2B space, when you're selling, products and services that are what, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000. I was working with one client and they sell big machinery. They sell one of their diggers, that's like $250,000, right? Like, yeah, and so, and it's kind of like they post their toys on LinkedIn. That's kind of what they are, right? It's just like, and clients love that when they see the latest piece of equipment that they post on LinkedIn, right? And so, but that's what works for their audience, right? So
very good. So, what are some of the mistakes that you see sales and marketing people make on LinkedIn?
Yeah. Well, where do I start? Well, first of all, have a really good profile, right? It starts with that, right? And so, and number two, and this is so, okay, I'm gonna maybe put you on the spot, Adam. When you send out your 20 connection requests, is each of them customized and personalized?
No.
Oh, no. Okay. Because you know what? I was expecting you to say yes, because you said you sent me a delightful and personalized connection request.
I sent a personalized one to you. I did, but I have to admit, no, with the other subtitles.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I don't mean. Okay, so that's the thing, right?
Listen, I'm really glad you called me out on that.
Oh no, because I thought, Adam, you are the paragon of, you practice what you preach. Because the reason that I accepted your connection request was that it was personalized, dear. Well, first of all, that there was a message. So, dear Anita, and then you did a little bit of name dropping to say, I know this person and I know this, and you said this, and so it was complimentary without being over the top. Right. And then you provided that social proof that you knew someone. And then I looked at your profile, so everything checked out, right? But so, which leads us to most sales reps just probably get some kind of automated tools and they send out connection requests. And they, you know what? If you don't have the time of day to send me a personalized connection request, I don't have time for you. Right. So that's kind of, the second mistake, really. Right.
Okay. So I made a mistake. My profile's okay, but I made a mistake. Yeah. Right. What's the next one?
Yeah. And then just like in terms of the sales process, right? Like I get so many irrelevant connection requests. So like the third mistake is qualify your prospect. Jeepers. Like I run a service firm. Right? Like I don't buy manufacturing robotics.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
right.
Come on, right? Yeah. So clearly there's some, crazy kind of automation going on at the back, just sending connections.
I get so annoyed with those. What I actually do, because I do get this one right, is that I use Sales Navigator to create a search of the key personas I'm trying to go after. That's the list that I work off. So I do get that right.
Yeah,
right,
exactly. So. But then, okay, I'm going to challenge you. If you send out, a 20 a day, personalize them a little bit more. I see that you did an acquisition, or I like what your CEO had to say, right? And so, and I guarantee you, Adam, you will differentiate yourself from 90% of the people out there who don't do that, right? Because that brings me to kind of like the third thing, and that is, it's really becoming annoying that there's automated outreach. There's some nefarious tools out there, and I'm not going to tell you which ones.
Yeah,
but, So I visited one of them, and in their terms of use, it says using this tool is a risk, and it may not comply with LinkedIn's terms of use. Okay, and then when I did some investigating on this company, their whole team of sales reps, they were fake sales reps. And now LinkedIn has tools where you can verify, right? And so because I worked at LinkedIn, I still have my back channels, and there is a way that I contacted the trust and safety team, and boom, there was like a bunch of sales reps that were like wiped out when their profiles were taken down. So that's the risk of when you use automation, right? And so, oh gosh, these are just like super simple things, Adam. But I just think that again, if you're not interested in doing the work, then this is not going to work for you because it's going to ruin the reputation of your company and also your brand. But having said that, look, none of the big companies, that I worked with are up to these shenanigans, right? It's kind of the suspect companies. Right. So like I worked with legitimate sales leaders, vice presidents, directors, regional directors, right? None of them said, we need a hack.
Right.
Right. These are professional salespeople. Right. So it's kind of the unprofessional ones that make it bad for the rest of us, essentially. So very interesting.
I think it all comes back to what your key premise of what you're saying, which is it's all about trust. And it's about, you want to get people to know, like, and trust you. And so you better start from the premise of doing something where people are going to trust that you are who you say you are.
Yeah, I think the first thing is trust. Yeah. Because LinkedIn just announced, and I haven't seen this yet. Well, they have launched this. So when I take a look at someone's profile, I can go to the little more button on their profile and then see that they have verified their email address, and when they join the network, right?
Yep.
And so it's usually the fake profiles that have been created like 2 or 3 months ago. 6 months ago. So it's pretty obvious. And Adam, don't get fooled by those pretty smiling female sales reps. Right.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
come on. And more likely than not, it's a pretty, nice looking female sales reps who are, and I put that in quotes, who are, AI generated, photos.
So let's move on to talk about AI. So where do you think, where does AI fit in all this?
Oh gosh. Well, look, Adam, everyone's asking the same question, right? Everybody is just kind of gone nuts and Master GPT and prompts and all that kind of stuff. But let me just kind of bring it down to something a little bit more simple to understand, right? It's right there in the tools that you're working with. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of examples. So LinkedIn has just announced that they're going to be embedding AI that's going to help you to write your headline and your about section a little bit better, right? So LinkedIn is right in front of you right there, okay? Salesforce just announced their Einstein AI query system. Again, sort of helps you with sales scripts, sales prompts, things like that, right?
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
MailChimp, HubSpot, Canva, all the tools that you're likely using right now. Like I'm seeing that they're starting to embed AI. I haven't really seen that in my Gmail yet or the documents, but it's coming, right? And so if you're kind of freaking out about, I need to get on top of AI, well, look, AI is right in front of you, and just make sure that you get the most out of the tools, right?
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah. I found that the best use of Chat GPT is to simplify something which is sort of like kind of a routine thing. Like, for example, I was writing a blog post, an ABM related blog post, and I was trying to explain the differences between demand generation, demand capture, and lead generation. So I said, you know what, let's just start with how does Chat GPT define it? Really, really nice, simple definition. And so they sort of like that sort of set the premise of the blog post. And then I kind of wrote to hopefully, write something a little bit more insightful than Chat GPT. The best description I had actually was a CMO said to me, I said, oh, you know what? It's great for helping you write that first crappy draft of a blog post. And then after that, you write something better off that. So,
absolutely.
But I mean, it's only a matter of time though, right? But I mean, I'm sure LinkedIn's all over this. I'm sure it's a matter of time before the automation tools then just automate that, try to automate that at, the sort of the fake salespeople and the fake reach out messages at scale.
Oh yeah. And, and I'm going to create a company. I say this jokingly, but Adam, let's do it, where there's going to be the anti-fake AI, right? So I'm going to create like the AI Defender product, to identify the fake outreach, right? Because it's going to be like spy against spy, automation, my robot's better than your robot, And
well, there's already that in education. I remember, when ChatGPT sort of really hit the news about 3 or 4 months ago, there was one of the first things that came out was somebody actually had a tool for teachers to scan kids' homework to see how much do they use ChatGPT to do it. This has been such a great conversation. I've learned a lot. I've got some things that I need to change,
and I learned too.
Good, excellent. So as we come to a close, I want to ask you a question I ask all of our guests, which is if you could get in the time machine and go back in time, any period of time, and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Oh, I would say it's progress over perfection, right? And so when it comes to writing content, I've been in sales and marketing, but I just writing content is sort of not necessarily my thing. So it's just you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it out there and spell check it.
Right. Yes,
so that's good enough, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Progress, not perfection. Yeah. I love that's one of my favorite expressions. In fact, I used to use that as when I ran the office of a big agency at one point, and I used to say, as we're sort of with the management team, I don't really get this, progress, not perfection. Everybody, all right, fine, we made some improvement. And they sort of got them there. Love it, excellent. Yeah. Anita, just wonderful having you on the podcast. Thank you so much, and really appreciate it. And so. Before, if you're listening or watching this, before we go, if you're watching this, you can subscribe on Apple or Spotify or whatever your favorite podcast application is. And if you're listening to this and you want to watch it, you can do so through a link in the show notes on YouTube. We've got more great guests coming up. And if you're listening to this and you've got a suggestion, somebody you think would be great to have on the show, email me at adam@healthlaunchpad.com. Anita, thanks again. And thank you everybody for listening or watching.
My pleasure. Thank you, Adam.